Is killing Revenants in 2021 still a good moneymaker? That's what we set out to test today. For those of you living under a rock or those who potentially maybe took a nice Runescape cleanse towards the end of last year and potentially missed the massive update to Revenants. In October of last year, the Rev Cave received a massive update with quite a few changes. The first one being the drops were nerfed. Then they added a 100k entry fee on top of getting into the cave, which you don't have to repay every single time you enter, but you do have to repay every single time you die within the caves. So if you're getting PK'd a lot, your cost per hour goes up drastically. In addition to this, all non-rev monsters within this cave were completely removed, and rather than having all of the revs in one hub spot, they've been spread throughout the entire cave system, basically giving each specific rev its own little section of the cave, except for maybe a few instances where there are two low-level ones stuck in the same area. And then finally, on top of that, they also changed the entire cave system to singles plus combat, meaning the whole cave was no longer multi-combat, and clans would no longer rule this entire cave system. But they would also introduce the single plus system so that regardless of whether you were already in combat with a rev, you could still be attacked by another player. Before we hop into the rest of the video, I do want to go ahead and show you my gear setup for this video. In total, this entire gear setup is about exactly 10 mil. And that includes everything in my inventory as well as my gear. The two more expensive items being the Vigorous Chain Mace, which is running about a little over 5 mil. And then over here we have the Den's Bulwark, which is running for around 4 mil. And technically neither of these are requirements, but overall I wanted this gear setup to be widely available and I felt 10 mil was well within that range. And ultimately, if you did want to cut off any of the cost for this video, you could go ahead and remove the Dens. Although with the 100k entry fee, I really felt it was necessary in order to really help prevent those extra death costs. Going into this 1 hour, I really wasn't sure what the best strategy was, considering that there are no longer a bunch of revs in a little tight area and you can just go bounce around killing from one to the next without any problem and really too much thought involved other than avoiding PKers whenever they hop in your world. With the new system early on, I tried to see if there were really any areas where I could try to put two back to back and potentially avoid any respawn timers that I would originally have to deal with if I just camped one. But ultimately, I really felt there weren't two of them within a close enough area in order to hop back and forth, and I ended up just camping the dragon for basically the entirety of the hour. And the reasoning behind this was pretty simple. If I had to only camp one specific Revenant, I chose the dragon because it was the highest level one and had the highest potential for the best rewards. Because realistically, I also took into account my ether charges, meaning that even if I was able to string two different Revenants together, I really wanted to make sure that they were both pretty decent kills. Otherwise, I was ultimately going to be spending more in ether to kill the second one than I was ever going to get back in rewards. Who knows, maybe there will be a part 2 to this video after this one goes up, where rather than just camping one for the entirety of the hour, we go ahead into one of the other areas and try to kill two of the smaller ones back to back in more succession. But after the total hour, I was able to end up with 64 Revenant Dragon kills, and we'll cover the total loot I received in just a couple minutes. I didn't really know what to expect in terms of PKers. For those of you who never did revs back before this update was live, the Rev Cave was an absolute hub for PKing. Not only was it the best PVM money, but it was also the best PKing money. And it was ultimately a hub within the wilderness for PVMers and PKers alike. And there were ridiculous amounts of traffic. Your eyes had to be glued to the screen because there were very few occasions where you could make it an entire 10 minutes without running into at least one PKer or potentially even an entire clan. But apart from that, we ran into 4 PKers throughout this entire 1 hour. And I honestly thought it was pretty funny. The very first world I logged into to start the 1 hour challenge, I cracked my Rev Telly to get out there, and there was literally a level 126 PKer standing right outside the cave already scald. But thankfully I was able just to log off and completely avoid him. And really I only had 2 run-ins where I actually had to escape. The 4th PKer I actually just logged from as well. And in the back you're actually going to be seeing my escapes from both of these PKers. The first one came at basically exactly the 30-minute mark, and the second one came at exactly the 1 hour mark. But we were able to complete the entire hour without a single death, as you will see. Sadly, we did have to burn some extra supplies like all the brews I brought, but that is well worth it rather than dying and having to pay the 100k entry fee again. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for, how much we actually made in the 1 hour. First up, we're actually going to start off with our total cost. This 100k is my original entry fee, and then these are all of the ether from my mace uses. Then we end up with 13 total prayer potions. I do want to mention, because I didn't mention it earlier, that I did use piety for this entire hour, and you could probably cut back on quite a few of those prayer potions if you do not. I also want to mention you should put a little asterisk by the ether charges, and that's because I basically net gained 0. I used 718 of the mace charges, but I ultimately got around 750 back into my bracelet. So in all reality, I really didn't make much money on ether or lose much money. But for the entire 1 hour, our total cost came out to 415k. Now for the total loot from the 1 hour of killing the Revenant Dragon. As you can see, we got pretty lucky pulling off the Ancient Totem drop, but I will do a price check with and without that, just so you can kind of see how much money we would have made if we didn't get that lucky drop. But with that, let's go ahead and jump straight into our price check. We're going to go ahead and manually put everything on. We're actually stacking up pretty quick, except these are all of the more expensive items too, so I'm not going to get my hopes up just yet. Still pretty solid so far. Honestly, I didn't really know what to expect because I didn't know how hard they ultimately nerfed each of these drops, and we came out to almost an exact 1.5 mil, and that's without the totem drop, and I think this is the 1 mil totem. It is, so 2.5 mil total loot in 1 hour of killing Revenant Dragons. So depending on you personally, whether you want to include the totem in the price check or not, that leaves you with 1 or 2 mil profit total for 1 hour of killing Revenant Dragons. So overall, I would consider Revs still pretty good money. Definitely worse money than it used to, but it is also way less risk. I would put this method around 1.5 mil plus per hour in terms of profit, considering if you actually camp this long term, you would definitely pick up more of the rare drops, including not only the weapons, but some of the more expensive ancient statuettes. But that's going to do it for this video. I'm honestly pretty happy with these results. I'm a big fan of Rev, so it's good to see that they're actually still pretty decent money. Maybe there will be a part 2 of this video, and we'll go ahead and camp 2 of the lower level ones back to back. If that is something you guys are interested in, let me know down below. Make sure to smash the like button on this video, and if you guys are around here often and you're not already, hit that subscribe button. But with that, I'll catch you guys in the next video.